Here's another Disney store here. The realistic ones like this do go very well, and there's several from the Aristocats. The vintage ones I would do about the same price, believe it or not. So it's a toss-up on which is worth more. The new limited runs like this, or the vintage ones. And there's vintage ones from the 60s when this, closer to when this came out anyway, I should say. Basically $300 on this one. Just another one too from the same line. This one's $295. Again, these are limited runs because they don't sell a ton of them. So if you play your cards right and you know when stuff comes out, you can buy it ahead of time. You may hold on to it for a month and then turn around and resell for twice, 3, 4, 5 times what you paid for it. As long as it's the limited runs and you're paying attention. Now, I'm not going to get into the technical aspects of that aspect because we do that occasionally. So I can't give you all my secrets. I'm not going to announce when stuff's coming out on that, again, because I do purchase some of these. You got to be quick on the market. You got to sell it before anybody else does and things along that line. It's quick in and quick out. That's the philosophy somewhat on this. Let's just put it that way. So $295, as you see. Again, vintage stuff is awesome. Now, I've got a Hanna-Barbera video coming out shortly. I've been working on it for a while, a few minutes here, a few minutes there. I'm going to try and show you most of the majority of characters you will run into, images of them. So again, that's only for in here. The video may show up on YouTube, but I'm only talking about it in here before it's out. I may give you guys all access to it, a couple days ahead of time though. So you can watch it and then everybody else will see it a couple days later. I may do that. That way you can have at least some ups on stuff like that. But good one here, Ricochet Rabbit. This is from like the Deputy Dog era. I believe he's actually Deputy Dog's, maybe deputy for, the police area. He's got the badge on the whole works. I could be wrong on the technical aspect of it, but there's a ton of these rubber-faced figures like this. Rushkin are like the leaders in a lot of these, so... $406. This one, because it's such an oddball character. Hanna-Barbera characters in general from, let's say, the 60s don't show up very often. So, anything Hanna-Barbera, any plushes that look to be 60s, I'll almost always buy them for a couple bucks. Here's Beanie and Cecil, the C6 Sea Serpent. This is the sea monster from that. So, Cecil the sea monster. Does he have the box with this too? Yeah, he's got the box with this, which is just incredibly rare from what I've seen. It's a Mattel product again. $514, 9 bids. So most people without the box, faded tag, might not know what this is. Even in dingy condition, these still sell. People will wash them. You could still get $100, no tag, dingy condition with some rips in it for this exact same plush. Just like the Bugs Bunny we showed you. It still would go for 40 or 50 bucks in rough condition. Somebody will repair these. I had some questions. I'm going to show you just quickly in another video coming up the repairing of the belt for the military, the 1870s Navy belt that I bought at that last military show too. So this is Zip Chimp. This is a Howdy Doody character. Most Howdy Doody characters have plushes or figures out. You probably wouldn't find them with the hat, maybe not even the outfit, so you might not know it's Howdy Doody. Again, that's another aspect of it. Most people, if they see a plush monkey, don't think much of it, in all honesty. Same with some of the teddy bear lines, which we'll touch on too. In the box and all the way this one is, $373. Generic box too, if you can see it here. Nothing fancy. It's not even, I don't think it's probably even advertised as Howdy Doody, which is typical on some of these items. They may not technically be licensed product back in the day. Unlicensed products were all over the place at one point. Now here's Rushton. It's a rubber-headed one. This is Marineland. I have honestly seen this one when we were in Florida, from the Marineland in Florida, so I know you could run across these. Now this one's probably one of the rarest ones you will find, $400, but it's a rubber-faced plush. Tag on this one. I've never seen the tag quite in this good condition. This is like a mint stored copy of this. They're really neat. I really like this one, in all honesty. I love, octopus and squid and the whole works. I love eating them. I know that's bad, but it's awesome to eat. I hate to say it. But anyway, here's another Rushton. I've talked about these before. Pink are always the best, but any figure like this is what I look for. Not necessarily even the brand matters on these. There's some that may not have a Rushton tag that were made by Rushton, so just keep that in mind. Just look for rubber-faced figures like this. Let's see here. JoJo's Bizarre. This is extremely hot, and I've touched on these in other videos, so I don't want to drill these in, but, somebody showed me one the other day, so I want to reiterate this. Look up any of these anime figures you get. This is not the only one. JoJo's Bizarre has been around for a little while. There's probably 20 or 30 plushes like this that are all anime, same size, same design, same looks and all, that all go for some good money. So just keep an eye on the structure. Don't worry about JoJo's Bizarre, so to speak. Look at the design, the construction, and all of that aspect on these, because almost anyone like this is good as long as it's a name brand and not, say, a claw machine version of some of these. And even some of the claw machine versions can go for some good money. As you can see, it's a pretty decent new, again, Japanese tags I look for. If it's got a Japanese tag, you better be looking it up. I don't care what it looks like, what kind of animal, what kind of plush. If it's got a Japanese tag, I look up every one of those if I don't know the character. I don't care if it takes me a few minutes. I'll hold on to it until I decide. If you're at Savers or a thrift store, throw them in your cart. Keep them in the cart until you can figure out whether they're worth something. Usually I'll go through the store, I'll grab everything that's good, and at the end I would look up everything, so that way I'm not killing time looking up something while somebody else is buying other stuff in the store. I grab everything I want, and then I look up the prices on it. You can just throw it back down. You haven't walked out of the store, you got nothing to lose. 2 sets of these sold for $460 basically. It's got another one, I guarantee you it'll sell. Now here's another example. This is JoJo's Bizarre again. This is Iggy, the dog from the show. It's got the same looks by the face. 27 of these sold for $916. Great Eastern is the same line that makes the Nintendo, Sonic, all of those lines. Just look for Great Eastern on a tag. I get people asking me show me a tag or something. Great Eastern's one of the ones you need to look for. That's like the #1 tag you want to look for right this minute on a plush. Great Eastern. Look for it. Look it up. Spend some time if you want to get the highest dollar ones you can and see and realize what the Great Eastern tag looks like. I don't think they have one. Yeah, they don't have one in here, but it clearly says Great Eastern on them. And Sonic, any of those figures have that on it there. Now, I talk about Lion King and stuff. Mufasa is the evil lion from it. He is harder to find, obviously, and I think I've touched on this before, too. But with, new Lion King and new lines and Christmas coming out, these bigger plushes are going to be good items to get across the board. Mufasa is one of the better ones. Lion King in general sells fairly well. It's been a fairly popular line. And I don't want to, rehash other things, but it's something that you need to look for. Tag or not, if you get Mufasa even without the tag, it will still sell. So again, people will see a big plush lion, they won't see a tag, and they will pass it up. Don't pass up stuff just because it doesn't have a tag. Try and ID it. If you can ID who it is, you got a good chance of selling it whether it has a tag or not. Just keep that in mind. You can have tags replaced. Just keep that in mind as well, too. Many people don't realize that. You can buy a trashed out one. You can buy one of a different size that had the exact same tag on it. Because it doesn't say a difference in size on a tag. The tags all look the same. So just keep that in mind. Now, I've showed some of the Andy Warhol covers. Now, this is from that cover in that. So I'm throwing this in here. This is a different one than some. It has a camo inside that, pulls out. The point on this one here, there's all different colors. The yellow one's the one to look for. Any of these, whether they have a tag or not, if it looks similar to this, it's the Andy Warhol banana. And they're worth $15, $20 minimum on any of these, up to $500, $600. They're newer. There's some vintage ones, too, that came out in the 80s and stuff, but even the newer ones of some stuff are incredibly good items to sell. So just keep that in mind. And I run into bananas. Now, there's other banana characters, too. Japanese characters from, again, going back to Japan. There's Japanese characters that are 2 bananas that you can see. And I think I actually still have it on our Facebook, like our icon for that, too. So anyway, there's many different things like this as well, too. So now here's another one. I found one of these before in with bears, and I watched somebody who's a reseller pick it up, put it back down. He picked it up to move to look what was under it. He just thought this was a teddy bear, a big junky teddy bear. This is the giveaway from Frito-Lay, 96, when they started rehashing it and all. This is a 3-foot Ewok. There's a small version as well. This is missing the outfit. Now there's a Chewbacca similar to this too that doesn't have his bandolier or his belt. So it just looks like a big fuzzy furry animal, and people mix them up with Bigfoot and all kinds of things like that. Harry and the Hendersons or something along that line. I've heard it confused as, at least the Chewbacca one. Harry and the Hendersons, John Lithgow movie. Look it up if you're interested. But there's a plush Harry, so... Anyway, this is $600. The smaller one's nowhere near this, but it still sells incredibly well. Now, Yum Yums is another line. This one's in the box, so it's a totally different story. This was like a, I guess you could say almost a challenge to the Care Bears in some ways. In the box of any of these figures are always best, or plushes, I should say. Really nice one here. Let's see if they've got a date for you on this. It's late 80s, early 90s from what I remember. So anyway, it's the same time frame as Care Bear era. So these are just another perfect example. So, and it's Kenner. Kenner, killer name, you know. Now, I brought up My Pet Monster before. One thing I want to say is this one's complete. You can even sell the handcuffs on there. I'm more talking about the handcuffs and the accessories. Just the handcuffs on these can go for $300. So, again, go back and watch the other video if you want to touch on it. It's here in Patreon. It says Plush in the title. Again, all my Patreon videos say what's in them in the title. My YouTube videos do not, though. So, but anyway, the handcuffs are a couple $100. This was a complete, excellent... Why these go, or this one went for so much money, if you look at the feet, the material is like a layered. It's got like a layer on the top. And what happens with these when they're older is it all peels off, the coloring part, and it'll be flaking off. And once it starts to peel, it's gone. It'll just keep on going and never stop. So the feet, the hands, and the face, the nose part, will peel off. The outer coating, the coloring part of it. So that's why a good condition one of these goes for good money. Plus, he's got the handcuffs. That's like $300 for a good pair of handcuffs for these. And again, I've just found the handcuffs once before, so don't rule that out on these. Now, here's another thing that there's some promos of these out here. I've never seen them for this high, but this is just a perfect example. He's got 3 more sets of these. These are 12-inch Lego plushes. Lego movies and the whole works. The plushes were promo items. Some of them were done at theaters. Some of them were sold at certain events or at the Lego stores. They're new. They didn't go for, they weren't a fortune to buy, but they are now just because they're hard to come by. So I'm sure that there's going to be a ton more put up just because these just came up not too long ago, and they sold for an insane amount of money. So for those who were hoarding them, you're probably going to see these, flush on the market and the price drop in half or even a third of this. So if you got any of these or you run into them, you want to get rid of them really quickly, I promise you, these probably won't hold their value in my honest opinion. I could be wrong, so don't hold me to that, but that would be what I would do if I run across one of these. I would sell it very quickly. I don't see as it holding on until Christmas, maybe, but, $1,790 in hand is better than maybe $2,000 later on, maybe. So, I'd rather take the money in hand first. That's always the safer bet. So, anyway. Now, there are some Sesame Street ones that are very rare. Know your Sesame Street characters is what I can tell you. There's 3 or 4 other ones. This is just one that happens to come by. There's a small version of this one, too, that I have sold. So I know this character here. I don't remember the name, unfortunately. But there's other characters by Jim Henson, such as Fraggle Rock plushes that will sell for some decent money, too. So look up Fraggle Rock and look up Plush, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. What's the Gummy Bears, or I think it's Gummy Bears, the Disney show. Some of those plushes can go for hundreds as well, too. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong name, but it's something along that line. I want to say it's Disney Gummy Bears. Look it up if you're not sure. But anyway, I know what they look like when I see one anyway. And here we go back again. This is Tailspins. This is Cloud Kicker. This is his little companion. He was a pilot. That's why it's called Tailspins. It's supposed to be a vintage taking place back in the past. So anyway, this is just another example of the rarer figures 90s TV show. This is from Walt Disney World. When we lived in Florida and worked at Disney, I just wished I would have bought most of these characters, because I could have bought hundreds and hundreds of these for almost nothing with our discount at Disney. So you live and you learn, but there's people that just make a living off of doing this. Disney's cracked down on a lot of them, but you're still able to buy them straight off the shelf with your discount, as long as you're not getting a double discount or anything screwy like that. So, and I do have friends that work there, so sometimes I do still get brand new merchandise to sell like this. Now this one here I touched on, again, Great Eastern, $919. There's some cheapo versions of this, so just pay attention. So you don't mix these up with the vintage originals like this. The new Great Easterns are the ones you want. 173 of these sold for $919. That's a huge amount of money for this sale here. So just keep that in mind. I'm just putting this out here. You know, I don't want to rehash this, but look at the amount of money. So you need to be looking outside the box. These can show up now. We have played with these in many areas. You can play with these in the wholesale aspect. I'm telling you, some of the wholesalers aren't caught on yet to these. And as well, you know, there's other avenues to find stuff like this also. RA items can be used. You know, even if you're spending a couple $100, if you get the right item, you can still sink that couple $100, sell it, double your money, buy two, quadruple your money. So just think outside the box a little bit here. Again, Great Eastern, not to drill that back in, but. And again, back to the same thing here. Sega, vintage Sega. This is 97. I've talked about all the video games are having a resurgence. This goes right back to the magazines that I was talking about, being computer-related magazines. I'm not kidding when I'm telling you that computer video games, 80s, 90s, are hot as can be. Anything in that field, the game systems are going up, the rarer discs are going up, the rarer cartridges are going up, the rarer plushes are going up, and 100% the magazines are going up. These are all driving these entire categories. Nintendo are running the field in plushes. They're also, the vintage video games and stuff are running the field in magazines for selling prices. So, you know, I'm not saying they're topping everyone because cause really controls this whole category right now. But another thing to think about in plushes, there's three main categories to sell plushes. And you've got toys, you got collectibles, and then you got the baby section. All three of those can have vintage collectible plushes sold in them, and they all sell in all three of those categories. Obviously, they'd probably go for more like a video game related plush, not in the plus section, but in the video game section. In some of these, again, this goes back to, you know, knowing where to sell things. Just another example. Know your characters a little bit. Look at the style, I should say, on some of these. And as you can see, the red wearing off on the foot, that's the same thing that happens to the My Pet Monster. So what I was talking about before, that's the issue that I'm talking about. The color comes off of some of these due to age and rubbing and wearing. And he's missing some on his legs too. So that's the issue. When that happens to some of these figures, these plushes, they're just not worth as much. So when you find one with, you know, this style of figure with not much damage or none at all, it goes for a ton more premium. And there are companies that will grade these. I've never seen a graded one yet, but there are companies that grade these. Now, this is Pushing, and this is a Gund. So, another Japanese character, too. So, just keep in mind, look at the character. There's not a lot to know on this. Just know what they look like. Gund is a well-known label. I sell guns. I've sold them. First experience with guns was from the Land Before Time, and I sold all of those for a ton of money. Brand new ones I would buy, and I would flip those occasionally back in the late 80s when those first came out. So, and I didn't even think about doing it as eBay. We would sell them even locally sometimes. But here's just another one from Pushing, you know, cat plush here too. So, anyway. Now, South Park has a bunch that are worth some money. Believe it or not. Some of these are new, some are vintage as well that are worth some money. The average characters, the four main characters, aren't worth as much. Tweak's more a underdog but well collected character. There's butter characters that sell very well. There's even certain versions of characters like Kenny has like 4 or 5 different versions that sell very well. They're just like from one character that he played in one single episode for a short period of time. Those are the ones that usually go for more money. Obviously, the mint condition is what you want. Most of them have two tags. South Park I do snag up because they're not as common as you would think considering how long South Park has been on. The vintage ones always sell. Maybe not nowhere near this price, but they do sell, and they still make South Park characters. So vintage ones are the ones you want. For the first few years they came out, season 1, 2, and 3 characters, the plushes and things like that go for the most. So anyway. Now here's a Stuffins, and I think the label literally says Stuffins on it. Yeah, you can't really see it, but it's a Stuffins label, and this is just another one of those. They're not all worth a bunch of money. You could look them up and find some that aren't. These are the dirty, dingy bears that you see that most people think's nothing. Even if they're not dirty, they just don't look like anything fancy. They're just colorful. Most of the time, people confuse these with like cheap knockoffs from carnivals, but it's a good name. They always sell. So if you don't know that, they may sit for a little while. I wouldn't have put this high on them, but again, they did sell them for that high. You'd sell them a lot quicker, a little lower in price, in my honesty. I don't like keeping big items. This is a fairly decent-sized plush, and I don't like to squish them down for storage. Just my opinion. So I move bigger items quicker. I'd rather take a little less money to get them out quicker. Because again, you see most of my stuff are smaller items. Now here's a Pokemon. This was a promo item, but they did show up over here as well. Reason why these are something that people miss is because they're just a fish, and most people don't realize that they're Pokemon. So just keep that in mind. Most of these are at least $300. Any of these goes for good money. This one still has the plastic bag, but you will find stuff like this just because people don't know and don't realize that maybe it's a promo. There's a bunch of gung-ho people into Pokemon and that have collected since Pokemon has been out. So this is an area that I would look for. There's dozens and dozens of Pokemon characters that are worth good money. Now, here's Chick-fil-A before the cows. There was this one here. This is an older one. You could write on them and draw on them and things along that line as well, too. Let me see if there's an example of the tag. These always reminded me of the vintage Ronald McDonald ones, but I don't see a tag on it. Either way, it's a very good one here, $400. Chick-fil-A has had a little bit of a renaissance. They're a little more popular now just because it's a healthier to some extent. So anyway, $400 for this one. Now here's another line from the 80s. I believe this is like 88, 89. This is Natural Valley Chewy Granola Bars. It's a C. Now this person got lucky enough to have 2 of these. They're not huge. They arrived in one, actually. It looks like he bought it at a thrift store. There's a coded letter of some sort, I would gather, for pricing. They sell very well, as you can see. A couple $100 a piece. And there's the C. There's the example of why that's the character that it is. Again, he's, I think, found this. This is 80s, 88, 89, as I said. I do remember this as well as, this came out when I was younger, too. So $400, $200 a piece. I would have sold them separately. You would have probably gotten $300 a piece for them. So who knows? It's hard to say at this point, but... Now, again, Pokemon, this is just a specific character. Pay attention to these. Most of the oddball ones that you don't recognize are the ones you're going to want to look into. If they're 50 cents or so, I usually just take a shot. I don't mind wasting 50 cents or a quarter on something, but most of the time, plush Pokemons will sell if they're vintage, 90s and in that era. Usually you're pretty safe, so at least for 50 cents a quarter. Or if not, you can put them in a bunch of like 10 Pokemon, and then boom, you're out the door. So, and I just have one more for today. Polka Dot Door Marigold. Now, there's many different versions of these. Most people think this is like a homemade thing here. It should have a tag. There's many different companies that made similar items to this too. There's like a Dress Me Up one that teaches kids how to like button and zippers and tie shoes and things like that. A lot of these are just thrown in big bins, and people just miss them. And let me see if it'll let me zoom in. It won't let me zoom in. But some of these materials, it peels or it rolls up like a sweater, I guess you could say. So if it doesn't do that on yours, you find one of these. And again, there's many different dolls and different outfits, very similar to this. I wish there was a label that I could show you, but it doesn't look like they have the label on these. There should be a label on these. It may not be on the outfit, but on the inside too. Yeah, and it's a TV show as well, as you can see here too. But all of this stuff sells. Any plush, usually from the 80s or 90s, if I don't recognize it, I'm going to grab it and look it up. So just play that by ear. And a lot of these that I'm showing you here, don't worry about the character so much. Worry about like Rushton or Rushkin characters. Worry more about what it's made of. The rubber face with the plush figure are usually what you want to look for. So those usually go very, very well. So anyway, that's what I have for you. Well, there you are. Hopefully that helps. As always, I appreciate all the support. If you have any questions, comments, anything like that, you can leave them right below this video or pop over to the community tab right here in Patreon, and you can post photos. I still have not received a response from Patreon, but I have found a couple Patreon videos from other people on YouTube that I may post a link to here just because they explain a little more that even I wasn't aware of. So FYI on that. And as well, you can email me through here. If you want to post photos so you can do a whole bunch all at once on Facebook, that's fine. But again, come back here and email me. I wish there was a way to fix this up here. Patreon did, though, say they are going to allow multiple photo posts. So as soon as that comes in, that should alleviate any issues having to even look at Facebook. I'm not a huge fan of Facebook just because of some of their policies and their safety issues alone. They just had to pay out $5 billion for a settlement. So anyway, enough about that. Again, just leave any comments, questions, anything like that, and I appreciate it.